I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and you're watching 12 different types of Aries Rising. Right now we're going to be talking about Aries Rising with Mars in Sagittarius in the ninth house. So, first we got to learn about the ninth house. So, essentially, the ninth house is the house that comes before the 10th. It was the sign that passed through the 10th house before the sign that currently occupies the 10th was there. So, in some sense, it represents what comes before action, what comes before one's career. And so, what typically happens before you take on a job is you apprentice or you go to college and you learn. Thought precedes action. It's what leads eventually to maturity. So, the ninth house has these associations with higher education and travel and religion to some degree. And planets in the ninth move toward the 10th house by zodiacal motion, but the Earth's turn, or diurnal motion, pushes them away. It deflects them away. It sends them out. And this is one of the key reasons that the ninth is about travel. And in fact, if you noticed, the third kind of has notions of travel contained within it, traveling within a short distance. And then we have the ninth house, which is traveling on a long distance, foreign places, foreign peoples. And the sixth house is related to travel as well, because it's being deflected away from the seventh, except the place you're going is, in between worlds, in between life and death. When you're really sick, you don't know, you don't know which way is up, right? I mean, you're sort of in between worlds in that sense. And then in the 12th, you're also kind of lost, you're wandering. So each of the cadent houses kind of have this same notion because they're each being deflected away from the angle. But the ninth is being deflected away from the 10th, and since it's on, since it's diurnal and it's making a trine to the ascendant, and because in the thema mundi it's ruled by Jupiter, it's a place of wisdom. It's a place of sort of new experiences and experiencing new places, and reaching new vistas of knowledge, and reaching towards truth or divinity or wisdom. So that is why the ninth is about voyages, and to some degree about like politics and philosophy and those kinds of things. So let's take a look at what this means for an Aries rising person. So, for an Aries rising person with Mars and Sagittarius in the ninth house, I like to call this the archer, the crusader, the zealot. So this is someone who is characterized by forcefully venturing into the world with faith, boldness, and conviction, imparting hot, fiery truth, wisdom, and beneficence as they see it, always aiming further and higher, whether it's a voyage of the mind or in the world. So I have a few examples which kind of show us this more literally. So Robin Knox Johnston was born with Aries rising with Mars and Sagittarius ninth, and he's a world sailor. He's the first person in the world to complete a solo non-stop circumnavigation of the globe by yacht. And he is this accomplished yachtsman. He's an author of several books about his adventures at sea, including A World of My Own, A Voyage for Madmen, Cape Horn, A Maritime Adventure, Seamanship, A Force of Nature, and he's even continued competitive yacht racing even as an elderly man now. So basically his ascendant ruler, I think, is a great representation of his persona as an intrepid voyager. So that, I think, is pretty cool. That's pretty clear. The ninth is about travel, and here's this guy, with the ascendant ruler in the ninth house who travels and has, these grand adventures. Billy Graham, he's an Aries rising with Mars and Sagittarius in the ninth house, and he's this evangelical preacher. And obviously this ties into, some of these Sagittarian, Jupiterian notions of, religion associated with the ninth house. And between 1947 and 2005, Billy Graham conducted 417 what he called crusades in 185 countries and territories in 6 continents. So this guy's done some traveling. I mean, he literally called them crusades. Like, this guy was an Energizer bunny, just going around the world, talking about Jesus, and that was what he did. He was very Mars and Sagittarius in the ninth. He was this, this, to some people, he was this great teacher, great preacher, fiery preacher, and, crisscrossed the world to do it. It's just all of the different elements that we'd be considering here. The Mars-like nature, Sagittarius, the ninth house, they all seem just to come together really nicely in the example of Billy Graham. Henry M. Morris is the father of modern creation science. He's born with Aries Rising with Mars and Sagittarius ninth, and this is interesting because this would sort of suggest someone who could potentially encounter trouble in places of higher learning. And so his academic background was in engineering and hydraulics. And alongside his day job as a professor of engineering, he would publish these books about creationism. And he kept these two professional lives separate for the most part. But eventually it got out that he was doing this, and it was extremely controversial at his university where he worked, because they were kind of like, how can you think, like, how can you be an engineer and be a total doofus at the same time? Like, and why are you putting, your credentials for this on this? And it's, a giant mess. So eventually he had to quit. And he founded a new college, Christian Heritage College, and he formed the Institute for Creation Research. And his works were vociferously and voraciously attacked by professors across various scientific disciplines for decades, because young Earth creationism is dumb. And I mean, you can see how you don't even have to agree with the person necessarily to still see how the ruler of their ascendant still indicates some very basic things. That he would be someone who would be a contentious figure, potentially in places of higher learning, and someone who would, strive toward a greater understanding or greater wisdom as they understood it, right? So, I think that's a pretty good example of someone with Mars in Sagittarius in the ninth. And that concludes this section. So watch the next video to watch for Aries Rising with Mars in Capricorn in the 10th house.